What? How does Charlotte pass an evening in the cemetery?
Well, I don't need to sleep.
Right.
So normally I'm
Do you collect up books and do a lot of like light reading? Do you wander about? Do you read headstones? Chat with people?
I think I do a mixture of, reading, both, sort of whatever I'm researching at the time, but also just, anything I can get my hands on about, how things work. What, kind of a, catching up on technology and everything like
I
that.
see. Do you do much text? Have you discovered the joys of texting?
Well, I do text some. I just
I'm just
text
curious. I'm just wondering.
in a prolific and very formal fashion with a salutation, content, and a closing because
And proper
they
punctuation.
haven't quite broke you of that. Yeah, there was one conversation in there where, like, one of the ponies was trying to explain to you that putting a period at the end of a sentence made you sound angry, and you're like, well, that's just nonsense. And they seemed very, very sure about that.
exploring emoticons though.
Yes. Okay. Well, may, that's a
Maybe not
no.
appropriately.
That's an agreeable. I think that's probably an agreeable compromise to
Hmm.
everything else that was as far as the
And
ponies are
just
concerned.
don't get me started with the peach icon.
Where did we have the conversation about your stability, your physical form? Do you remember where we had that conversation?
Where we had it.
Like, is it in emails? Was it in a chat? Where did we do? I couldn't find it today, and I was trying to find what we had sort of settled on with that stuff, with you occasionally phasing into human form. Do you remember that? Because Dave,
I
you
don't I
It
don't
wasn't.
recall
I
seeing
don't think
anything in the forums, so
no, it
on the
wasn't in the
forum. I
forum.
think it was. I think it was. Either we were talking at the end of a session or it was.
Huh.
I just think it was in person, or maybe it was a text. Maybe it was a text via Dave because you know how that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where we ended up doing
Because
that.
we did that after. Well, of course, it happened
I think, well, maybe this is it.
after
Oh, here we
the
go. I found it.
what's her
Ah,
name.
look at that. I found it.
There you go.
Uh, do. Alive or dead? Believe. Some sort of a sideways application of density control. Uh, okay. All right. I was just trying to remember what we had sort of said about that. All right. So while you're probably doing all this stuff, you notice that it's interesting to me that with only two players, it still takes me as long to get rolling. Um, well, there was a lot to get caught up on, but anyway, you notice that it probably nobody else would even see this. Um, but looking up into the night, you sort of something makes you look up, and you
No one
see
looks up.
nobody ever looks up, and you see kind of up in the sky, uh, somebody hanging up there, not hanging, but hovering, like just standing, just in the sky, like
Okay.
like you do. About,
Okay.
I would say not directly above you, but kind of in this general graveyard area, sort of in your part of the graveyard.
Okay. How
And
how far up?
100 feet, maybe 30 yards. not terribly far, all things considered.
Okay.
So not as far up as. What do you do?
Um, it's not somebody I recognize or anything like
Well,
that.
in the dark, I mean, you can see that they're up there, which most people wouldn't be able to see. But from this distance, in the dark,
Okay. Well,
it,
I go up to see what's what.
so as you get closer, you see that it is, with some shock, uh, he's got his back to you as you're coming up, but it appears to be the Magus, Magus Everard, and he's sort of he's almost in this position, like kind of without the kind of fancy hand
Hmm.
position, and but his arms are kind of closer to his side, maybe crossed across his chest, sort of thing, and he is actually no, his hands are in his pockets, and he's looking down at the Everard Mausoleum, which he is not directly above, but he's sort of if you were to draw a line between say your gravestone and the mausoleum, he's about halfway, then 100 feet
Between the
up,
two.
and looking down at the mausoleum. So he's
Okay.
just sort of hanging there, and you're coming up at him again, kind of from behind. So it's mostly just, but you something in you as you get close, you recognize that it's him, having never met him really. Um,
Yeah, unless you count the day I didn't die.
yeah, you undied, um, which you didn't meet him really at that point in time, but for something, maybe it's a connection from that. You would imagine. I mean, it makes sense that it would be a connection with that. You just immediately recognize it. As you get fair, like right about the same time that you have that recognition, he sort of half turns his head and you're like over his left shoulder, and as just check and looks back, looks back to the museum, says, "Ah, you're still alive. That's promising." Or actually,
Okay.
his emphasis on what he says is, "Ah, you're still alive. That's promising." What do you do?
Well, saying that it was that my change was intentional, that you were seeking to see what happened, or were you just upon it?
Uh, there are a number of questions there to unpack. Was your change intentional? Yes. The effect was intentional.
But not targeted upon me.
I didn't say that. I
Uh,
got a bit lucky in that regard, but I'm very pleased with the results. It was not an experiment. You have to understand, I was working rather quickly at the time. What with fighting for my life, that sort of thing.
why are you here now?
Well, taking taking stock of the situation, see how poorly I did. Which seems fairly poorly. Uh, Replaying things, I suppose you might say. Answering questions seems to be half a joke and half an offer, which is exciting potentially.
Well, I'm glad
Why
that you're
are
here.
why are you here?
This is my home.
Really? Hmm. Wouldn't have I wouldn't have expected that. Ah. Well,
So are you answering questions or do you want to ask questions? Which would
oh,
you prefer?
I can't do anything with answers right now. So I suppose he kind of stretches a little bit, kind of like he puts his hands around to like it's underneath his cloak, but he puts them to like to the small of his back and sort of arches his back a little bit, like he's stretching out a tight spot. Um,
Okay.
and, yeah, just a little bit. It's an interesting thing to see a person do in midair. So I suppose I can. I mean, I may not have any answers, but I can do what I can. I'm actually just here for the show. He gestures kind of idly towards the ground, where literally nothing is going on. But there's a few minutes before things get rolling, so I suppose I can.
What are you expecting to happen
Oh,
shortly?
that would be telling. That's not a question I can really
Spoilers,
answer.
sweetie.
Spoilers, sweetie. Um,
Would have been nice if you were here earlier.
well, I was. You mean a specific earlier?
Yeah.
Oh well, I've been occupied. So you're kind of come up maybe I would say culturally, even habitually, just a little bit behind him, and like say to the left or the right.
Okay.
Um, his attention is still kind of on the mausoleum area. Uh, been a few cowboys working out down there, haven't there? Hmm. Well, what would you ask me, Miss Palmer? Is it? I never knew your family.
Well, you probably should have.
Why do you say that?
I've I've been looking into our history some, and I believe there's some additional connections with Liam down there,
Hmm. That would be
which
the
may have led to some of your luck.
well. That would be you're referring, of course, to the Everard family that is housed in that mausoleum. That is not my family.
No, I said that family.
You're very well spotted. I wouldn't say that we have a connection. My connection is primarily with. I mean, I have a connection to that family. I don't have a connection to the
Remind me of the name of the the group that my father belonged to.
the
The
hidden family of the Vertilian throne.
Oh, so it's more the hidden family of the Vertobian throne.
No, my connection isn't really with them either. Although I have taken it upon myself as a, I took it upon myself as a personal hobby to vex them whenever I could. Actually, I took it upon myself to vex that family, and by extension, all of their associated, I suppose you would say, cousins. My grandfather fought in the fought in the Revolutionary War and won the right to have a last name, and for some absolutely inexplicable reason decided to take the name of his owner from before the war. And while I have absolutely no affection for any gestures down towards the mausoleum, the family that he borrowed the name from, I have a great deal of respect for my grandfather's right to have the name that he chooses. So that doesn't mean I can't give them holy hell for the rest of all eternity if I have the opportunity. And
Interesting way of thinking of it.
well, to an extent, that's what I was doing when you came to be, which is ironic, really, since your family was actually part of the whole thing, as near as I can tell. But you weren't, were you? You didn't know anything about it at the time. It's very interesting.
Would not have been appropriate for a woman.
Hmm.
Things such as that.
I hope you're growing out of that attitude the longer that you're here. It would be a waste to have you here if you weren't.
I'm not troubled by
He actually
some of the social norms of my day.
he chuckles a bit at that. That is, I suppose that's a pretty good thing to hear. And he's got an interesting sort of diction because he'll go back and forth between something sort of highfalutin and
Yeah.
sort of high society and what could really, I mean, if you were a modern day girl, you could only really describe as sort of like, you know, low income urban center Philadelphia or Baltimore.
Okay.
Like
Well, so
it's possible he's putting on a few airs, certainly.
so when I died. Hold on a second.
Say
I
that.
can find that out.
Say that again.
I'm trying to remember when I died.
It would have been, somewhere in the 1860s.
1849 actually.
18. Okay, all right. So a bit before the
So,
Civil War, then. A bit
mhm,
before the Civil War.
yeah,
Ah,
or
yeah. His great.
slightly.
Uh, so yeah, he goes on a bit of a meandering conversation about how his great grandfather didn't have his grandfather until he was didn't conceive his grandfather until he was almost 60, and his grandfather didn't have his father until he was almost 60. Uh, Luckily his dad didn't wait as long, or he wouldn't have been born yet. But uh, I'm
So
not
he's not
I'm not gonna.
unusually historic in age.
No, no,
Is
no. He was born in the. I think I did the math on this. Would have been the 90s? No,
okay.
80s or
No.
90s?
Okay.
Yeah. So his grandfather was in the Civil War, and then he didn't have his kid until he was 60. That would put him at 1900. His kid that he had, or it was that wasn't the only kid he had, but he didn't have that kid until then. His kid didn't have his dad until he was 60, which puts it at 1960.
Okay.
And then his dad had him when he was 30, so 1990. Yeah, Everard was only is was made Magus only at what 30 something.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean he's a he's a millennial technically. Yeah, he'd been born around. But yeah, only a few generations between him and the Revolutionary War, or sorry, the Civil War, thanks to my grandfather and my great grandfather being dogs, I suppose you'd say.
Late procreators.
Well, early too, at big families. So he kind of smirks at that, just a little bit, but he doesn't seem to find it particularly funny. But that's my personal history. You can't be that interested in that. I didn't create you after all, Charlotte. I just brought you to this zip code. Uh, Times, temporally speaking. I mean, you're welcome, I
Why?
suppose, if you were inclined to say thank you, but I don't.
I
You
I
don't
I
particularly owe
am
me anything.
certainly enjoying this life, as it were.
Oh, you should definitely call it that. I think that's
Um.
accurate.
So, say anything about my little insubstantiality, my little um problem.
You want to ask him about that, or I didn't.
I'm trying to decide if I would.
I see.
Why did you create me?
There are. I was looking for a healer, and I had to work fast, and I don't know how I did. I think I might have done all right, but there's just, yeah, I was looking for a healer, and I got you. So fingers crossed. We'll see how that works out for me in the long run.
So, what expectations do you have of me?
Oh, uh, what expectations do you have of I'm sorry, that's a terrible analogy. I'm not going to. What expectations do you have of a child when they're born? Hope, really. That's about it. What expectations do you have of an attractive member of the opposite sex that you see across the room that you hope might be walking out with you later in the evening? Hope, really. What expectations do you have of a newly opened bottle of wine? Hope, really. That it all turns out as well as you might expect. And that's I don't I'm not going to lay a compulsion on you, Charlotte. I'm not. I never did. I can only say that I was looking to bring a certain thing into the world and hope that that's how it turns out. I'm beyond the point where I can really hope to steer anything. I just have to hope that things basically go the way I was planning. And it's not as though my goals were particularly noble. Again, I'm mostly at this point in time just hoping, and he gestures down towards the ground again, hoping to vex everything those people ever touched.
And
So
why is that so important to you?
those individuals in a world that was dying and fading and cursed came here to a land of bounty and opportunity and practically infinite potential. And having done so, settled in and began to make slaves of other people in this world simply because that was what was everybody else was doing and they thought it would be easier to fit in. And for that, I will flay their very souls to the end of the universe. Mostly because I did it to my grandpappy, and I'm just sort of pissed about that. It's not a particularly noble calling. It's entirely vindictive, but everyone has to have hobbies. Oh, look. Now no fair interfering. This is what I came to see. Don't ruin the show. And
Okay.
and you see that down below there's somebody. It's fairly surprising because it actually takes you a while to spot who he's
Referring
indicating,
to?
who he's referring to. Which you should. I mean, you spotted this guy up in a night sky, um, and you're looking down at the ground. There's lights around. They're not a lot of lights, but there's lights around, and this person is moving very well. And honestly, it's a little bit of an affront that they're using shadows that well around you personally, but they are. The individual down there, somebody's creeping around, um, kind of around the mausoleum, and they're getting relatively close, and they pause for a little bit, and then they back out, they back away, and they pause, and they back away some more, and then some more, and you realize they're range finding on the dead spot, like they're apparently, or they must be because they keep backing out until they get out of where you perceive the dead spot to be, and then they stop. And they kind of push this hood back. They're just wearing like a hoodie, apparently. Or well, they had a hood up. They're wearing some sort of, I don't know, all black, near as you can tell. Um, Long hair, must be a woman. Uh, and okay, this is going to be very, now watch. What's going to happen next is very interesting. And he's gesturing mostly with the hand closest to you and pointing down there as he has been up to this point. Um, this is going to be very interesting. Watch. Can you perceive the wound?
Does he mean the void spot?
He must be because he's gesturing that direction. Can you perceive it from here? Or do you need to be closer?
I try um,
Yeah.
using some of the tricks I learned from Jason because he was using my sight very differently than I do.
I like that. I like that a lot. Um, Now watch this. I'll be very interested to see if she manages a technique that here we go, here we go. And you see sort of a very thin, almost wireframe kind of arch uh form in front of this person. Um and uh it kind of glows and gets that we've talked about, like sort of that what do you call it? The lost in space effect.
Okay.
Um with that,
Is
kind of
is
shimmery, watery
is
kind
the
of.
person Asian?
From where you're looking, dark hair,
Okay.
uh, possibly, prob. I mean, you don't see anything that would indicate they're not. Now watch the dead spot, and there she goes. Now that is interesting. That is very. He's like point. He's. It's honestly. It's. If you can imagine this guy doing like a Jeff Goldblum kind of thing. Now that is interesting. Because the dead spot doesn't change. There's a little bit of damage, right? But that's a scar. People get scars all the time. If you look at your hand, well, okay, not your hands, but if you look at a person's hands, a living creature will go through an entire life accumulating scars. There's nothing wrong with that. Scars are bearable. Wounds, on the other hand, wounds that are too terrible to close, those are a problem. But this, even though it was close to the wound, did not make the wound worse. That is exciting. Or at least not yet another reason for me to develop an ulcer as though I could. So that is interesting. Now, I imagine you're going to want to go do something about everything that just happened there. I'll understand that. I have other places I need to be as well. What year is it?
Excuse me.
He just suddenly like, well, what?
Obviously, you've been very busy. It's
It's 2018 now. It's into January, so it's
January,
huh. All right.
year of
Well,
our Lord, 2018,
ah,
2018.
yes. Oh, so some time you've been here. That's interesting. I thought you were. You've been doing very well if you're still here. That's very good odds
Is
for you
there
being.
something I should be doing to improve my odds?
I think you probably already had. You already have, or you would have. I mean, something terrible would have happened to you by this point in time, and possibly something will, but it won't be because of anything that you didn't do. I'm sure it'll be because of something that you did. Uh, so good luck. And he turns. He goes, Healer, it was a pleasure, and I wish you truly, from the bottom of my tiny, shrunken, selfish heart, the best of luck. And as he's turning towards you, he doesn't have his right side on the front.
Okay.
He's sort of just not there. It's in a weird way, it's almost like the portal energy that you saw in the fact that there's still sort of like an energy signal. He's not like a meaty corpse on that side or anything like that. He's just sort of existentially absent. It looks as though various sections have been boiled away by some sort of something.
Can you
Uh,
help with that?
no, no. I could have done probably on your timeline 2 years ago, but no, I've been dead for ages, love. This is nothing. Don't worry about me. I just have a few more things to do. Uh, Hopefully, I'm going to be back into a timeline where I'm actually alive. But for now, uh, this is me. Don't let it haunt you. I know it's difficult to see my face when it's not uniformly beautiful, but I'm sure you'll bear up under the strain. Until then, if you happen to see me in 2014 was a very good year. If you see me then, look me up.
I don't think I
And
was born in 2018.
you
2014.
would have been what's the word? Instantiated. Um like it wasn't at the same time as the Vertovian thing, but it was within about 6 months of that happening. So it was like towards the end of 2015.
Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, it wouldn't have been. You weren't around then in 2014,
At
and
least not in this format.
no, no, not in a format that would go on social calls. Um, as near as you can tell. But who knows? World's a good place, and he is just not there. Like just instantaneously blink your eyes several times, not there.
Well, I'm obviously going to have to add him to my research list.
Yeah, he's a cipher. What?
Wrapped in an enigma.
Yeah, and what you had, I'm sure you've looked up bits of him before. None of it terribly complimentary. Um, Generally, he's been, uh, his a lot of people bemoan the fact that he ended up becoming the Magus because as a general, he's been quite selfish.
Absentee.
Well, not even absentee, but he's been like, he's there have been a few like puff pieces on him and like GQ and Vogue, that sort of thing, where there's a mountaintop chalet in the Alps that he made, and where he's apparently being waited on hand and foot by um, Jennifer Lopez and pick a laundry list of actresses, and oh, don't worry, it's not actually them. I just went to a different dimension where they aren't famous and were never discovered, and they were so happy to have somebody pay attention to them that I brought them here, and they're very pleased. You know, that sort of thing.
Okay.
I always wanted, I always wanted to date Jennifer Lopez, so I found one where she was a heroin addict, and I pulled her out of squalor and brought her here. She's very pleased, very happy, aren't you, dear? Say yes, smile for the camera. Oh, still need to.
Yes, yes, Professor
Yeah. So there's that kind,
Higgins.
yeah, that kind of thing
Higgins.
where he's there's that kind of stuff where he is undeniably a terrible person, but
He's skeevy.
he's skeevy and yeah, that sort of thing. And generally disinclined to save the universe or the world. So,
So not surprising that he actually is not doing anything right now.
well, there is the little pesky detail of him apparently being dead. Um,
I don't get the impression that that would actually slow him down much.
well, he's a good conversationalist still, so there's that. All right. So with him out of the way, what do you do? What do you do?
Well, obviously, I'm going to go and see where our mysterious woman went.
Okay. There's still sort of
And are her props still there?
there's some sparking bits of kind of, it looks, I mean, iron filings in sort of a line on the ground where the thing sort of, the ring sort of collapsed. Um, it looks like some of like the same sort of tech as Jason's magic armor stuff. His technologically magical.
His nanobots?
Yes, it seems to be that same similar kind of tech.
Huh.
Not responsive at all based on what you're seeing, but certainly seems to be the same.
Of a similar ilk?
Yeah, I mean, what sensors, what senses you have that detect that register energy signatures and that sort of thing, of which I'm certain you have some. Um, Jason's stuff isn't something you can easily read, but certainly something that you've identified the weirdness of the aura such that you could go, yes, that's the same weird aura.
Okay.
It's almost like a thing that's alive, like a particularly torpid lizard. Um, when you try to focus on his shirt, unless he's in the middle of thinking about something, in which case it's practically like it's almost when you're around Jason and he's really like going. It's almost like you get like feedback, like a doubling of his emotional signal.
Okay.
But most of the time it's like he has a particularly stupid pet. Um, somewhere between like
I don't think I'm going to tell him that.
no.
It's your stupid pet. I mean, your nanobots.
So anyway, I mean, it would seem that that wasn't Jason. You can that
No, I
that requires very
that
little.
first guess was probably right.
It certainly seems to be.
Okay. Um, I'm I'm gonna follow the script and just let.
I know I went to the other side, so I'm going to go to the other side.
I'm
Is that what you were saying, or are you saying
I,
something else?
also I don't think it's wise for Jason Jason's judgment around Alicia is a little bit
Shoddy?
fragile.
Fragile. His judgment is fragile.
So
Frail.
so I think that it might be best if I some preliminary looking on my own. Um, I will where I am.
Okay. So actually, that would how we'll skip past you coming to the same conclusion that you clearly already did. Um,
No, and I love the conclusion, by the way. I think it's perfect.
yeah,
So
I was trying to think. It's like, how would she leave a note? She wouldn't leave a note. She wouldn't send. How would she? Oh, of course we have Power Pony. Um, so Rebecca, her name's Rebecca, picks up on the first ring because, and she's mentioned a number of times that you are literally the only person that she will answer the phone for until she's like, because her typical habit, and this boggles your mind. First of all, to realize that you have the technology to be able to call and speak to anybody whenever you want to, and then she finds it annoying. Like you you missed the whole section of history where being able to talk on the telephone was a wonder, and then convenient.
right.
It stopped being a wonder or convenient. Uh, but she cuts you some slack. You are literally the only person who she doesn't immediately just shove to voicemail and then text and say, "Hey, what's up? What do you need?" in a text. Um, she actually answers for you. It still takes a few rings. Um,
what what is her real name? Do I know it?
Rebecca. It's Rebecca, which she does not, as a general rule, allow anybody. You get a few passes. One is she answers the phone. The other one is you get to call her that. Um, there are occasionally a few people who call her B. You're not entirely sure why. Um, and then it was explained that that's, you know, short for Becky, which is just nonsense because Becky is short for Rebecca, and why would it need to get any shorter? It's already incredible. It's already incredibly familiar. Um, but yeah, she answers like, "Hey Gigi, what's up?"
Hello, Miss Becky. Um, do you have a moment? I have a favor to ask of you.
I picked up the phone. I am at your disposal.
Why, thank you, darling. Um, I'm going to be stepping out for a little bit, and I just wanted to make sure somebody knew where I was going, just in case things get a little bit. So I was hoping that I could just share this with you, and if you don't hear back from me in a little bit, you can let one of the boys
Oh,
know. Is that okay?
how about let's meet up somewhere real quick. I want to make sure I get this in writing because I don't want anybody to think I'm it just. And I know how much you
Well,
like to write notes, so your
so
handwriting.
where are you, darling?
Oh, I can get to where
No,
you
no,
are.
where are you?
Oh,
No, I can just come there.
right, right. I forget.
Sure, you don't want to come here.
Well, I'm at the shop. I'm just checking stuff out. We're setting up the AMA for next week, so I'm, making sure that we got the
And
backup
so
of
as she's talking, I just walk over there.
she get the weird doubling thing on the phone where she's still
Yeah.
talking to you, but you're hearing her, like, because you're standing in the same room. Okay. That is cool. Um, but dang. Okay, so
I can show you sometime when we have more time.
that that would be tight. Um, all right. So
Buttering her up so that
she fishes out some paper out of her laptop bag, like a sheet of paper. It's like, just write the note. Who are you gonna write it to? Anybody in particular? Did anybody? I mean, I can get it to Leo
I think
easiest.
I Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's good. I'm thinking about it as like,
or Link. She said Link,
no,
not Leo yet.
yeah, no. I think this needs to go to Jason, and so I'm writing,
Oh,
in my curly, florid.
yeah. Well, I'll do what I can, but he tends to freak out when girls call him.
Well, you can try one of the other boys if that's what one of the other young gentlemen if he's not available.
Whew.
That would be fine.
Young gentleman. All right. Uh, all right. Well, it might still end up being Link because he's the only one that doesn't seem to like have some sort of aneurysm when a girl looks at him sideways. Blame all that on his girl, or
Well,
thank her.
I but I think I maybe have some more normal time.
All right.
So maybe I'll bring one of the boys over next time.
All
So
right. Well, you got
it's
to
a little
be
bit more comfortable.
wherever you're going. You got to be back in time to do our little Q&A. All right. This is
Certainly haven't forgotten.
all right. All right.
You take care now. Um, and I'll let you know when I'm back. Okay?
All right. All right. Is it going to be a long time? You're okay, right? You're not doing some crazy with the weird like that demon guy, right?
No, 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 no.
All
Just a
right.
little what's the word? Recognizance.
Oh.
She's so proud she found the word.
All right. Well, I'll let him. I'll find him tomorrow morning and let him know.
And I'm not like sealing up the letter or anything, so if she wants to
No.
see it, she can.
Yeah.
But
All right. She tucks it away in her bag. She's being polite about it at least for now. Um, and that's about it. So you can slip back and head over.
thank
Uh,
you, darling.
my pleasure. That you are adorable. All right. Uh, so are you? So if you're gonna head over, across the veil, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, the dimensional barrier, I am going to have you roll unleash your powers because it's still not easy by any stretch.
Wait, wait,
And I
there we
got,
go.
I think I got rid of your, I think I unchecked your one condition that you had because you got rid of insecure. Oh, I'm going to uncheck that. It doesn't matter for this particular role, but you got rid of insecure because acting without checking with anybody first is how you get rid of insecure.
Yeah, yeah.
So bonus, this gets rid of insecure for you. Yay.
Okay, and I still have a little TPD because I haven't decided what my last update was. So
Oh, right. You've still got an advance floating out there. Is that right?
maybe this will dictate that decision.
It could be. Could do.
All right. Okay, unleash my powers. Here we go.
All right.
Konichi wants to unleash her powers. Yes. Hello, sweetheart.
Okay. I'm gonna go over here. And an 8. All right. So. Hmm, hmm, hmm,
Where's Cat?
hmm. Where are we? I should look up this other thing. The Unleash Your Powers is okay, I guess, but I want to look at this other move I was researching. One of the nicest thing about switching when I get the audio and grab it from the video track and turn it into an audio track for the podcast version of everything is I can there's this really awesome filter that you can do to the audio that takes any dead air that's more than half a second long and truncates it to half a second. Um, which makes me going and then I can set the decibel level so that it gets out all of my muttering to myself. Makes me sound way smarter than I actually am.
Well, I do a lot of WebEx meetings and things like that where I do the recordings, and I was having to download a whole bunch of meetings because they're gonna be cleaning up the backlog and clearing out space, and so to do that you sort of have to listen to the beginning of them, and it's sort of like it always freaks me out when I hear myself talk, and then then you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, how many times did I say in the last 5 minutes?
Yeah. It's gotten to the point with me where I can actually spot it by looking at the waveforms because the is always the same shape. Um,
No, no, no.
I wonder if I want to use it.
Is that how they do the voice recognition?
All right, I'm going to use, actually, I think, uh, yeah, I think we've been through this enough times that I'm actually going to do it slightly differently. Um,
Go for it.
it's the same role, so it doesn't really matter. Okay. Still a freak roll. So, when you open a portal to non-terrestrial dimensions through magic or technology, roll freak. On a hit, the portal opens safely and you can pass through without difficulty. On a 10 plus, you can name the particulars of where you've traveled. On a 7 to 9, you can name the place to which you traveled. The GM will tell you the rest.
Got it.
So, on a 6 or less, the portal is not yours to control. Um, so, uh, and this is partly because of the exposure to what you've got, your exposure to this several times and understanding like the passage thing. You've been kind of going through to a point pretty much precisely analogous to where you were
Right.
here as much as it's able. And you can certainly do that again, but if you choose, you could probably come in someplace else.
I'm gonna take advantage of that, and since it's so familiar, I'm gonna come in at my own grave.
So just shift yourself over. I guess it would be a
And
couple hundred
that
yards.
will let me, observe somebody or, you know, be
Sure.
out in the open as much.
Okay. Great. Um, so the play as you come through, you notice the world is actually. I mean, it's still got this weird light to it. It's if you've been, I mean, if you ever look up at the sky in a city at night, you'll notice that it's like it's never really dark.
Right.
Um, and if depending on the city, the sky will be a shade of brown or something like that. It's one of the things I noticed when I was a younger kid and coming to LA for the first time and being just struck by the fact that not only was the sky never dark, but it was brown. Like, ugh.
Well,
And
especially older LA before
yeah,
they got better about the pollution.
this would have been the 80s. So
Yeah.
not their finest hour with regards to any of that. And it's like that, except you can't really exactly tell where the light's coming from. Whether it's almost like it's like the night. Okay, so if it's nighttime and you're on one side of a house that's very dark on the outside of the house, and you're on one side of it, but there's a lot of bright lights on the other side of the house.
Okay.
Uh, it strikes you as being very much like that. Like the light is bleeding out into the night sky, but not from your local. There's light pollution, but not local light pollution, which is just weird.
Okay.
It makes it difficult to see really any stars. You hardly see any. Uh, it also means that it's not quite the same as or as wholesome as what it's like on the night of a full moon, it's actually quite easy to see if you're walking around at night on a full moon. Um,
Yes, do it all the time.
and it's like that, but not
It's
the
not coming from above, it's coming from beyond.
and it's not the same quality of light. Um, it's just less pleasant. Um,
A little bit more sepia.
yeah, something like that. It's definitely got a weirder tint to it. Do you head back in the general direction of the uh, mausoleum where you would normally come out? You could extend your senses here from where you're at. You're certainly at a good place for it. And that again, that's sort of a if you extend your sort of supernatural senses, that again, that's an unleash your power to extend your senses and see what you can detect around here. That might be
But
probably the most useful way to track down whoever it is that came through.
yeah, I'll do that, but first I want to actually get up into the sky some, so I
Oh,
have
okay.
a more three-dimensional.
Great. Perfect. Perfect. All right. So you kind of head up into the sky, and as you rise up, you have the sort of stray thought. It's like, oh, this is convenient. I'm not actually solid this time, uh, which is nice. Uh, you weren't quite
And
sure.
then,
Yeah. No, you weren't quite sure uh, whether that was connected to coming across or not, or what the deal was. Apparently not. So that's convenient. And you get up there and then sort of reach out with your senses to uh, see what you can see and see if you can figure out. And it's convenient, if they're using tech like Jason's, they should be easier to kind of look for because
right.
assuming they still have any of that tech, you at least know what. Yeah, you at least recognize that. So let's have another unleash your powers freak
Okay.
roll. See what we get. You're not dangerous, but you are a freak.
Actually, I like sort of have the well-rounded stats right
Are
now.
you? Oh, not a fan.
Don't have anything above a 2 or below a -1, so
Not too bad. That's about as well rounded as we get right now. All right, so a 7. All right, so with unleash your powers, you can. The options at this with this level of success are say you can let me say how the effect is unstable or temporary, or you can take a condition to have it not be unstable or temporary.
I'm sorry, what
So you're
have the effect of my sight?
yeah, you can when you extend your senses out like this in this way, you're really tapping into your powers and kind of thing. With a 10 or above, it just works.
Okay,
Um, in this kind of result, it's going to work and be shaky
got it.
or unstable or in some way, shape, or form not 100%, or it costs you a little bit to keep the effort up in some way, shape, or form, and you'll end up taking a condition from that from the
I think I'll
effort.
do the latter.
Take the condition. All right. Um, okay, so you never really had a chance to do this fully on this side. You pretty much concentrated on like getting back and forth, and you'd looked, you'd done some reconnaissance, as you say, visually, but you never really extended your senses in this way on this side. And the shock to your system as you open yourself up to this is initially just a bucket of freezing water over your head. It is the sheer amount of suffering and pain and death.
Wrongness.
Well, no, I mean it's also that this is a world there so there's multiple layers of this. People here, many thousands, if not millions of people here died um, within the last decade or so. And they suffered, and then many of them died afraid, and many of them died in fear, many of them died suffering throughout for any number of reasons. And and that is a shock. But then below that, the very bones of the world seem to be almost that of a arthritic, painfully arthritic, aged person. The world itself is just unspeakably weary, and the sheer overwhelming, truly global scope of this background count, really, of misery is just a flat out blow to your psyche. Um, you get a handle on it. You fight this down, and you fight yourself through to focus. Um, it wasn't a six, so I don't say take a powerful blow.
Right.
But so you fight through this, but it is a teeth grinding, sweat beading on the forehead, clenched fists effort
What, you mean it's
to,
like a contraction?
yes, honestly, I mean, just to bear through all, and just to get through that, yes. I mean, if that's, yeah, honestly. But almost, I don't want to say worse, but different, because it's coming from outside. It's a assault, really, from the outside.
Oppression.
Yes. So, uh, uh, so you fight your way through that and manage to sort of not normalize it, but get to the point where you're managing it. This takes some time. You're not even entirely sure how much time, but you finally get to the point where it's like suddenly being exposed to an incredibly loud concert, and however much time it takes before you can even really not be overwhelmed and can even pretend to listen to the people that you came with, and can finally even hear the gist or get the gist of what they're saying when they're shouting at you. Um, but eventually, and I don't know what condition, I'm going to let you decide which condition you take from that. Um, uh, but
Probably hopeless.
I buy
As
that.
much as I hate it, but
Yeah, that's you know
I mean,
what?
self.
I love this game so damn much because people look as like, man, I use unleash my powers all the time. Fuck it, I'm taking hopeless because that's the best thing that makes sense.
Yep.
I love it. Love this game. Anyway, all right, so you're still doing that, and you do get a sense of it's Jasonness, and it's definitely not Jasonness, but you definitely get a sense of some of that energy signature in the direction that it's heading. Do you immediately pursue? Do you keep watching them from a distance, kind of a thing? They're moving, so they're definitely not. Uh, oh, you know what they're doing? I take that back. They're not actually that far away. They're at the beacon, the radio beacon,
Okay. Of course
uh,
they are.
which you had set a bit a ways down the hill to make sure it didn't get eaten by the
A grew.
expanding
Yep.
thing.
Okay.
Um, so they seem to be fiddling around at that. Uh, uh, and I mean, do you watch? Do you interfere? Do you wait and see?
Oh no, I'm gonna go possess the beacon.
Possess the beacon. Now, so I got to look at the. I need to look at the possess move because I got to remember. All right, possession. When you touch a mortal object, and ooh, this is new. You haven't possessed like tech before,
Yeah, I have.
have you?
Um,
You did
did
the.
I?
You did no. You did the rocks, and then you used a rock again for the truth bomb.
No, I thought I did something tech based.
I think you've only used this move the two times. Uh,
Linked everybody's heads together.
yeah, that was
That
like
was
rocks for
that's it.
everybody to
Yeah.
hold. And then the truth
Yeah.
bomb was just kind of something that you picked up actually in this shadow realm or something like that.
Yeah.
When you touch a mortal object and empower it, roll freak. Of course, this being right after you do hopeless.
Of
Um,
course.
On a hit, you can use this object as a focus to do something impossible. When you roll, blah 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 blah. So let's have now. And before we get to this, don't roll yet.
So I'm not visible.
Well, you can. There's any number of ways you can get to that thing without being easily detected. I mean, you can pass through stuff literally physically. So if you want to, you
I
can go
mean,
down.
I can like reach up from the ground and touch
Yes,
it,
yes.
kind of a.
Um, there's any number of ways you can get right to that thing.
Yeah, I just wanted you to know I wasn't just like walking up to it and touching it with her there. So,
Sure,
you know.
sure. Um, and if you come up out of the ground as you're doing it, that's going to be a bit of a surprise anyway. Um, Dave, I
Yes.
remember that I know it's been a ton of time and I really apologize. Um,
I just so you know, I'm gonna have to bail in about 20 minutes.
and I'm aware of that. And I also know that I've not gotten nearly as far as I needed to get with you guys, or wanted to get, more to the point. So let me ask you this. If we did a part 2 tomorrow evening, what would that look like? Is that a doable thing?
What time does our thing end? Let me pull up my
like
calendar.
5 o'clock, 5:30.
I'm up in the mountains
I'm
until I'm up in the mountains
I'm
until at least 4:30 anyway. So
I'm announcing at the Centennial League A-League finals.
nice. You've got the voice for that.
In lane
I know
one, Susie Smith from Chatsfield High
they
School.
love him. They absolutely
They-
love him.
Yeah,
That's
it's kind
great.
of embarrassing, but I enjoy it.
That's so much fun. That's great. You've got the perfect voice for that.
As far as I can tell, that would work because we don't have dinner plans, do we?
We have no dinner plans.
All right.
Except for maybe another nice gin and lime drink for the husband.
This is the problem.
Lime drinks.
This is the problem with one of you being 2 sessions behind because I've got to get you 2 sessions caught up. And Dave.
Well, that's okay. So it's right that it should take 2 sessions to catch us up 2 sessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's actually been fun watching Charlotte do stuff. So.
It really has. I've been enjoying myself. But the thing is, timeline-wise, I can't get you in here yet. Like, you just aren't here yet.
No, I understand.
So
you're going to ask a question.
Well, I was just going to make sure that was okay because I knew that you probably had to go in a bit. So we'll probably this will be a short thing, and then we'll do one tomorrow evening and make it all together like a thing. If that's okay, is that cool?
Sure.
Because
Yep.
you've been a lovely audience.
I've been taking notes, so you know.
I apologize. I thought I could get.
No, I love it. I don't know
faster.
how we would have gotten it done in 2
Oh,
hours.
I could have maybe
sessions.
I could have maybe started actually on time instead of trying to get you caught up for 40 minutes.
Well, but then we wouldn't have so much fun talking to
Magus, which
all
yeah.
snarky.
Oh, that was worth the price of admission.
Yeah. Okay. So I apologize, Dave. Tomorrow will be all you. No, it won't be, but it will be more you. Okay. So with that, let's see how this possession works on this beacon thing.
Oh, thank you. I'm so looking forward to that. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let's come on. I want a good roll this time because you notice I have not been rolling well there.
No, but you also have a penalty now, so that'll be fun.
Yeah. Well,
if the trend continues, it's going to be a. Oh. So a 7. That is a 7 with the penalty. 3, 4.
So 7 to 9.
It's a straight up 7, a +2 from your stat, but then a -2 for being hopeless.
Right.
But still 7. So the way this is working, and it doesn't. I mean, the thing that we established before is it doesn't even matter if you fail because what you wanted is going to happen. When you touch a mortal object and empower it, roll freak. On a hit, you can use the object as a focus to do something impossible. When you roll a 10+, choose 1. It works exceptionally well, or you get an additional use out of it. On a miss, the focus is effective, but it has a completely unintended side effect that the GM will reveal when you use it. I am unspeakably disappointed that I don't get to investigate that side of things, but what did you...
I don't know. We had so much fun the last time I did this. I figure it's going to be my go-to move for a while now, just to make you happy and earn GM points.
Charlotte body swapped into Alicia's body would just be awesome. So So, what were you what were
I
you
don't know. I
doing
think
with
that's
this thing?
way too many Jason fetishes rolled into one.
I did list Ghost Girl as the one person I wanted to kiss.
There is
You
no
did.
there is no such thing as too many Jason fetishes all at once. Um,
We've yet to
so
plumb those depths.
so what
Jason, like Edward, is just a smorgasbord of opportunity.
what did you want this thing to do? What were you doing with this thing?
Well, that's a good question.
You were just going to possess it and didn't know?
No, I didn't know.
All right.
So I mean, because like first off, I want to kind of sense what she's trying to do.
She's fiddling with the guts of it. I mean, it's technological stuff, so you're not 100% or even
but
50%
is she
sure.
trying to break it or make it better
She is
or
not.
make it
No,
do something different?
breaking it would be easy. She's wiring some extra stuff into it. Looks like maybe some sort of mic. I think anything beyond that's going to be a little bit extra tech for you, like some sort of like headset or something. Um, maybe
So maybe
or
something where she gets to hear whatever we hear.
Or
yeah,
send a message
yeah, or
or
something. Um,
Okay.
so there's that. But she's holding bits of it in her, well, not bits of it, but stuff attached to it. I'm gonna say that you kind of come up out of the ground at least like waist high and sort of lay your hand on it. But I mean, not, and you kind of extend your sense in it to get a sense of. So she's, I mean,
I mean, so
we say
I think. Go
when we
ahead.
say impossible, it's really what we're saying here, unless you're talking about a 10, is something that is kind of outside of your normal skill set.
Mhm.
So establishing some sort of mental connection with her or getting a surface read on what her intentions and thoughts are. Um, sort of
What I'd like to do
a
is
perfectly
connect.
a perfectly
Connect.
legitimate thing to do with this would be like, I'm going to use this thing to somehow get a read on her so that I get a couple of questions off of the pierce the mask move, kind of a thing, something like that. Just with
I was actually going for something a little bit more passive, which was to say, you know, that I link on whatever the output that she's creating. So whatever she hears or says, I can hear her say. I mean, I can hear.
okay. Now, are you doing this up through the ground so she doesn't really realize that you're there, or are you coming up through the ground where you're like right there and you kind of startle her, but you
No,
still
no,
get the lead of all the stuff?
I'm don't want her to see me while I do this.
Okay. All right. And
I will confront her later, but right now I don't want her to know that has been observed.
okay. That's honestly right now sort of the impossible part of this because and I'm not saying impossible in that you can't do it. I'm saying impossible and then that's the thing that
As
you
in
shouldn't be able to do
improbable.
that you are able to do.
Right.
Because part of the connection that she has right now is such that she would know if somebody were connected to this thing and she doesn't. Partly because of the way that you're connecting is not really technological in nature, so she's not sensing it. You do get a sense of her. You sort of almost see her uh, like you see her like almost as though you're looking up at her from the device, like
Okay.
from the beacon. Um, and she's
Cool.
very intently bent over the thing. She's got like in a way kind of the same, it's a weird thing. It's like one of the sort of the fancy, weird, shoulderless, but still has sleeves shirts that you see like the ponies wear sometimes, which is just the oddest fashion. And
They're called cold shoulder joys.
are they? How
Yes.
appropriate. So she's wearing something like that, but the shirt itself kind of weirdly, it's not all like Jason's shirt, but there's activity on it that reminds you very strongly of Jason's shirt. Um,
have enough of Jason's shirt to make a shirt, so
Yeah, kind of, hair is sort of shaggy a bit and in disarray, and she's looking very intently down at this thing. She is not, she's listening, but she's also apparently sort of tracing, like doing some sort of back trace or triangulation or something where she having this thing having received some sort of return signal, she's trying to figure out where it came from so she can figure out where to go.
so it did get a return signal, but we didn't
Yes.
hear that.
Well, you wouldn't have. You had to go and check on it. So it was kind of like, because the idea was we're going to set this thing up for a rendezvous, say come here at this point, and we will show up at this point, because that way it's less back and forth to check it, because there's no way to check it from the other side. At least there isn't.
I've forgotten that aspect of it.
Until you guys figure out a cross-dimensional radio, and this truly becomes some sort of weird spin-off episode of Fringe.
Hey, just give us a couple of weeks, Joyce.
Yeah, I know. Give Jason, 1 session. He'll get straightened out.
Yeah, he'll just add to that Doom track, no problem.
Yeah. But yeah, she's doing something there, and so that's her loading on the screen here. I wonder how big this one's going to be. Oh, that'll work. And about
that's not the most stable looking Alicia.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure.
That's sepia Alicia?
Well, I mean,
Wouldn't know about that anyway, so never mind.
You saw her come from the other side, so anyway, like I said, there's some weird activity on that chart. And right about that time, the area that you're in is sort of bathed in spotlight. And we'll stop there.
All right.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know what I hope it is.
Hey, Dave. We have another Alicia picture. You're welcome. Did I kill him? Is he muted?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, sorry. Yes, I see that. That's yeah, deeply disturbing.
Yeah, it's deeply disturbing, Alicia.
Disturbing, Alicia. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
I'm saving the one in the power armor. Okay. Only kind of kidding. Anyway, all right. So we will pause there. Not stop, just pause. The 24-hour pause, 22-hour pause. And we will pick things up tomorrow with the adventures of Jason Quill as he tries to, because we'll probably, Margie, jump
of course.
forward
it's
a
his
bit.
Turn.
Well, we'll probably jump your time period forward a bit, but that'll work out really well because the way that Jason's portal works is he can kind of like go to where it's kind of like the dispatcher in Pandemic.
I thought you were going to say it was like stalker mode.
No, it's kind of like
go to where Alicia is and.
No, it's kind of like one of the dispatcher's abilities in Pandemic, where you can take one person and move them someplace else on the board, but you can move them anywhere on the board where somebody else is at. So like his actual portal power, the way it's written, is now he's getting to do fun hacks with it because of his Sanctum stuff. But the default portal power is I can go to wherever anybody else is having a scene. I just have to spend a doom point to do it. And he's already spending a doom point, so he can basically go, I'm going to cross the thing, cross the dimensional membrane, and when I get to the other side, I would like to come out wherever Charlotte's at. Let's just save time. And he's got sufficient
because doom point or doom point. Well, let me think. Yeah. I think I will spend a doom point.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not as though, I mean, luckily he's doing this from the Quill compound, which has more than enough sufficient readings on your energy signature to go, yeah, we know what that looks like. We can help you. We can help you triangulate on that. It'll be great.
And I'm gonna take a little bit more time this time to kind of, make sure that all the proper power supplies are spun up. And
so you don't brown out the entire point. Yeah. That would
Yeah,
be a good
something like
idea.
that.
That would be a good idea. It's actually we worked out a thing with his pot with that. If he's got a solution that lets him not punch holes through the dimensional barrier in some horribly horrific way, one of two. So he needs to have a good solid power supply, and I can't remember what the other. There was another criterion. I can't remember what it was. And then the third one was either Ghost Girl helps me,
Well, it's
or
either Harry helps me, Ghost Girl helps me, or I take a doom point.
or you take a doom point. Because Harry can help you in one way, Ghost Girl can help you in another way, or you can just bridge it through brute.
Sheer pluck.
Yeah, sheer pluck. Sure, sheer pluck.
Brute force and pain.
Where the thing that you're plucking out is a portion of your soul. Yes,
Yeah,
sheer
like
pluck.
So I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to get Harry involved because this whole CP-verse thing is already causing problems with his family, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I am going to see whether I can somehow, having been recently intimate with Charlotte's form,
Excuse me?
in a way that I would never use that particular word to her.
Monkey boy.
I didn't do anything wrong.
I didn't touch your parts.
I didn't touch your parts. I'm gonna see whether there's any sort of a link there that I can somehow use in lieu of a doom point to get through. So I will let the GM kind of decide if that's going to happen or not.
Well, this time probably it'll require a doom point. But
oh, good. Every other time I could just go to her. Okay.
No. I mean, if it were that's not. But this
going
is not,
to me versus once you're here.
Using the portal is always going to cost you a doom point. This thing is like, how can I do it in a way? And this is this solves the problem. But I mean, you're giving up a doom point. So how do you get rid of a doom point? It's easy. I have to involve my friends in something I would rather not involve them in. Not because I don't want them involved in my business, but because I'm worried that it might expose them to various things. So yeah, you can either have the drama of a doom point or the drama of involving your friends.
Does involving Numina count?
No.
Numina? No, because she doesn't have the right kind of juice for this.
Okay.
It's about. I mean, the reason I didn't pick Harry and
so
Charlotte.
It's involving selected friends that makes sense from a scientific story plot.
Right.
Perspective.
Right. It's not just. I mean, but it's got to be. It's got
to be painful.
It's like you can not involve them and potentially put them in danger, but it costs you a doom point, or you can involve them. But it's still the list of people. When I originally wrote it up, I had Leo on the list, and I was thinking, I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense though, because Leo hasn't ever shown any kind of ability to be able. I mean, he logically would be able to sort of figure out the science of it. But if you're trying to just do this thing, like walk up into Quill Compound, make sure you've got juice, power this thing up, and go. You need somebody who's already demonstrated the ability to cross this dimensional barrier, and that's Harry and Charlotte. So that's why that's who the list is. Sorry, I didn't have Leo on there. I had Concord on there, and yeah, he's a massive cosmic battery, but again, he hasn't dimension hopped. Mm-hmm. So you'd be.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
and he may not have an interest in doing it.
Yeah, he's already. I mean, you've already established that something about the other two's powers
can do something with this.
Lets them do this. So
okay.
But the good thing is that there's some story arc off of this where you can conceivably. I mean, if you, in conjunction with Charlotte, can cross this dimensional barrier, working together in such a way that doesn't damage the dimensional membrane, that eventually become a thing. Like that becomes super useful. I mean, the flip side of that is that Charlotte can cross the dimensional barrier if she has some help from you. So without damaging it. Mm-hmm. And that leads to all kinds of interesting things about, well, first of all, why? What was that third thing? It was like you needed juice, you needed their help or a doom point, but there was a third thing.
I have the post up.
It was right near the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it's not on the very last page.
So I was slightly was talking to James about this because we were talking about that one thread and everything that happened in there, and because I had been while he was over here, we were talking about the whole Amir thing, and it's driving me crazy because your dad hasn't gotten to the post where Amir like didn't recognize the sneakers thing, and he says, "Yeah, I was trying to read that, and then I went in there and I saw how many posts there were, and I went, 'What do you mean?' And I opened it up and I realized there's like 92 posts in the thread, just that thread."
Yeah.
So
You think you guys are having some fun there?
So I will say this: I'm not. I've never been particularly good at play-by-post games because A, I'm not patient enough, and B, I will eventually it robs me of my momentum. And after even if ones I'm really into after a couple of months I can't do it. But this game plays very well play by post. There's little enough dice rolling and enough fiction stuff that it works really really well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also more than that. I think it's also just the investment that everyone's made in their characters and such.
Yeah, it's
mm-hmm.
This game routinely blows my mind with that. I mean, everybody's been great. We played 30 sessions with Star Wars. It's not like we played games that we weren't participatory in and involved in and contributing stuff to. We've always done that. But this thing has been like a whole different gear. Or several gears. Did you find it, Dave, or no?
I did. So first I was linked to a high power energy supply. Second, I'll need help from Harry or Gigi, or need to mark a box on my Doom track. Third, you and your team will risk danger from external interference.
Oh, right. And then we flip over to that portal roll. So basically, this stuff as a whole is sort of what the same thing that Gigi was able to do to get to that portal roll
mm-hmm.
thing. So the third thing is, and you're still going to have to roll to see whatever. But the flip side of that is Gigi can just get to that, but it damages the interstitial membrane. You can theoretically do this, and with these extra couple of steps or requirements, do it without. Or as Everard noted, it's not without damage. There's a scar, but we can take scars. We can't take wounds.
Right.
Yeah.
I will note parenthetically that whatever Alicia did apparently had that scar effect, and she didn't have any help. So, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Anyway, so there you go. Well, actually, she technically did. Some crazy person did all the math for her and then left her a jar full of crap that'll let her do it. So she had a bit of help from a besotted something or other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whatever business. Anyway, I'll let you go.
On that note, I probably need to run off. Thank you. This was fun. Looking to what time are we going to do this tomorrow?
Looking forward to actually getting your turn next time.
Maybe.
We'll say I will be around at 7:30. If we don't get rolling till 8, that's fine. Is that cool? Is that late enough?
Sure. No, that's fine. Okay. That's fine.
That'll give us.
I may be under the same parameters tomorrow as far as time goes.
That's totally fine. But I'll make sure that we.
Or you may not.
I'll make sure. I'll make sure that we get our stuff done. So it'll be all good.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. Thank you guys so much. It was so much fun. Especially Charlotte, since Charlotte got most of the stuff going on. But
I did.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you guys.
All right. See you guys tomorrow.